Today, we are diving into one of history's absolute strangest and most haunting mysteries. We're going to unpack the story of a boy who, well, seemed to just appear out of thin air. A boy with no past, no identity, and a secret that, just maybe, ended up getting him killed.
But here's the thing. To really get our heads around a mystery this bizarre, we first have to think about how we make sense of anything at all. It's not just about memorizing facts or rules, right? To truly grasp something complex, you've got to go a little deeper.
You have to think in stories. That's how our brains work. Stories are how we piece everything together. Emotions, logic, our experiences, into a narrative that makes sense. It's what gives our lives context.
So, what happens when you meet someone who doesn't have one? No story, no past, no context, not a single explanation for who they are or where they came from. Well, that is the core, the absolute heart of the mystery of Kaspar Hauser.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Picture this. It's 1828 in the city of Nuremberg, Germany. It's a holiday, people are out and about, and then this teenage boy is found just wandering the streets. And right away, it's obvious something is very, very wrong with him.
He looked completely bewildered. He was weak, he could barely even walk properly, and in his hand he was clutching the single letter addressed to a local military captain. But the most shocking thing? It was his behavior. It was like he had never, ever been around other people before in his life.
And get this, when anyone tried to talk to him, they realized he could hardly speak. He just kept repeating this one sentence, over and over again. Here's a boy, maybe 16 years old, with the language skills of a toddler. The mystery was officially on.
So the local authorities start investigating, and they begin to teach him how to communicate. And as they do, a story starts to come out. A story so horrifying, so chilling, it's almost impossible to even imagine.
The core of what he claimed was just staggering. Kaspar said that for his entire life, for as long as he could remember, he had been locked away, all alone, in a tiny, dark cell.
He described a life of total isolation. No human beings, no sunlight, just bread and water left for him by someone he never ever saw. He had no idea what the world was, what society was, or even really what it meant to be a person.
Just stop and think about that for a second. Is it even possible for a human to survive that, let alone develop, in that kind of complete sensory and social vacuum? That question became the absolute center of the debate that swirled around him.
And that debate, well, it basically split all of Europe into two camps. Was this kid a tragic victim telling a truth so insane it had to be real? Or was he a brilliant fraud, an imposter, pulling off one of the greatest hoaxes of all time?
So on one side, you had doctors and scholars who studied him and said, look, his behavior is authentic. His eyes were painfully sensitive to light. He couldn't handle loud noises. His mind was like a child's. It all fit his story. But on the other side, you had skeptics saying, no way. This kid's a phenomenal actor, a liar looking for fame, or maybe he's a pawn in some bigger scheme.
And the speculation just got wilder and wilder. But then, this one theory emerged that was absolutely explosive. What if Kaspar wasn't just some random boy? What if he was the true prince of the royal house of Baden, swapped at birth with a dying baby and locked away so a rival branch of the family could take the throne?
And just as Kaspar was becoming this huge celebrity across Europe, his story takes an even darker, more violent turn. His life, which had already started in such deep mystery, was now about to be marked by a series of sudden, brutal attacks.
You started to see this terrifying pattern. First, he's found with a strange injury on his head. A while later, he gets a stab wound. Now, each time, Kaspar claimed he was attacked by a stranger, but the attacker was never found. Of course, the skeptics said he was just hurting himself to get more attention.
But if you believe that royal prince theory, well then, these attacks make a whole lot of terrifying sense, don't they? Was someone from his past desperately trying to make sure he never told the whole story?
Then, in December of 1833, it happened one last time. Kaspar stumbles home with a deep wound in his chest. He claimed a stranger had tricked him, lured him into a park, and stabbed him. He died from that wound 3 days later. And just like all the other times, there was no attacker, no real proof, just a universe of unanswered questions.
So here we are, almost 200 years later, and the mystery of Kaspar Hauser is as alive as ever. You'd think, with all our modern technology, we'd have cracked this case wide open by now, right? But the truth,
is just as slippery as it was back then.
Historians are still fighting about it, arguing over the exact same pieces of evidence from the 1800s. And what's really fascinating is that modern DNA tests, and they've done a few on his old clothes and hair samples, have all come back inconclusive. Some tests hint at a royal connection, others completely rule it out. It's maddening. And so, this is where we're left, with these two incredibly powerful, totally opposite stories. Was he a forgotten prince, the silent victim of a ruthless political crime? Or was he a master illusionist, maybe one of the most brilliant and convincing imposters who ever lived?
The frustrating truth is, we'll probably never know for sure. The incredible story of the boy who came from nowhere remains just that, a story with no clear beginning and no proven end.
Which actually brings us all the way back to what we said at the start. The reason Caspar's story is so powerful is because it's a broken story, and that's what makes it so fascinating. And if we want to get better at telling our own stories, we can learn a lot from cases like this. Really listen to how people tell stories. Pay attention to how they build their sentences, and watch how one idea flows into the next.
Because being a compelling speaker, being truly fluent, isn't about knowing a ton of difficult words. That's really just one piece of the puzzle.
It's really about being able to take ideas, whether they're simple or complex, and shape them into a narrative that is clear, powerful, and connects with people. That's the art of the story. And the story of Caspar Hauser, the boy with no past, is still one of the most powerful and haunting you'll ever hear.